Tom contacted us via email. So thank you very much, Tom. Tom says, "Hi, gang, love the podcast. My question for you relates to Carlos Alcaraz and his comments this week that he feels there are too many mandatory events on the tour. This reminded me of something similar that Iga Swiatek has said previously on the women's tour and wanted to get your opinion. Do you think there are too many mandatory events? And what do you think can be done with the schedule to make the tour more player friendly?" Um, so just a bit of context to what Tom's saying. Swiatek had said previously that she's going to have to choose some tournaments, skip some, even if they're mandatory, because she said she called it pretty crazy that there's all these mandatory events. Alcaraz has then agreed with Iga, just saying, for the health of the players, you're going to have to skip some mandatory tournaments. Otherwise, there's just too many. Saying that the schedule could kill us in some way. So a lot of criticism from the players here. Do you think this is warranted? Joel, coming to you first.
I think so. I think if you look at the number of events on the tour, the number of events that are 2 weeks on the tour, particularly for these top players, the fact that there are so many mandatory events with kind of Grand Slams, the Masters, not even adding kind of team events as well. Maybe playing Davis Cup or Billie Jean King Cup. I do think there are. I think the issue has been more that it needs to be called out by the players, and I actually applaud the players from kind of taking a stance on this and kind of saying that you know this is becoming a bit of a joke, and as much as the tours might want to put penalties on us, I need to prioritize my health kind of first of all. And it's getting a bit ridiculous, I think, with the schedule. I don't think the 2 week events are helping, and you shouldn't be having your top players withdraw from the Masters events. I think if these events were maybe 1 week, it would feel kind of less daunting. But I mean, for Alcaraz, granted that he maybe is not feeling 100% from his efforts this week, but you want the top players at your Masters events, and they shouldn't be feeling knackered before the showpiece.
Oof.
Yeah.
I do
Uh,
agree on that.
Chris.
I'm gonna jump in here, Kim, because
Yeah, go
I
for
do
it.
feel quite strongly that you can't have your cake and eat it. And I think, yes, I don't agree with the fact that the Masters tournaments are as long as they are. I do think there's not much rest periods or training blocks or periods where you can get balance in your life
No.
as well. You don't have choices. And I do think for people who are as successful as they are, wanting to manage their schedule, I don't think that's too much to ask. So I agree with you on that, but I do think that some of the problems that they have with it is they could be earning a lot more money if they're playing more of these exhibitions. And Carlos is actually a little bit guilty of playing a lot of them. He has the Six King Slam coming up. He also has an event in Miami, which is headlining with Fonseca, Anisimova, and Raducanu, and another event just outside
Mm.
New York, which he's playing with the same lineup, but TFO's playing instead of Fonseca there. And that's just the ones that are announced already. So it's not like he's necessarily taking time off all the time. He's actually playing more events than some players who might be slightly more lowly ranked. I do think when it comes to winning a slam and wanting time off, I do think that's where sometimes there is too quick a turnaround with the Davis Cup or whatever. But I think he can't necessarily be the number one champion of this issue, given
That's
how
a good
often he
point.
plays like off the tour. Um, Kim, I would ask you maybe the question around, do you think that the best way to do well is to skip one of those masters, whether that's like Rome or Madrid, don't play them both, or, heading into the hard court swing, is it better to prioritize one in order to peak at the slam?
Yeah, I mean, just on that point of the exhibitions, I suppose from Alcaraz's perspective, if it's a short-lived, fun thing, that's a lot less mental and physical
He didn't exactly try at the Laver
strain.
Cup, did he?
So, so I think, but I totally get your point that, like, you should be prioritizing proper tour events. But um, I think what they could maybe do, can they not give them like a free pass for like one or two of the events per year, and
Mm.
then they can plan their schedule more
Needs to
accordingly
be a bit
around
more
that?
flexibility, doesn't there?
Yeah, because ultimately, if you're forcing people to play, they're just going to get injured, going to get they're going to be more retirements. You're not going to get the best level of tennis because people aren't going to be able to compete at their highest level because they haven't had the rest period. So, maybe less is more. You're going to get better quality if people are able to turn up feeling better in themselves. So I think
Maybe
there
some
needs to
variety of
be
matchup
something
as well, right?
introduced.
Because then it's actually quite interesting seeing sometimes what happens when the top players aren't all there. Sometimes I think obviously we want the best players to be playing in all of them. But having said that, every time Alcaraz and Sinner are in the same tournament at the moment, it is an Alcaraz Sinner final, which is great. It's exciting. But I do think sometimes it is actually nice to see what else is happening on the tour. We did that period, obviously, when Sinner was out, allowed a few more players to come up potentially. But I mean, I probably would just say they don't like the 2 week Masters. And I think that's probably what this is really about.
About we
Uh,
Yeah.
don't like them either very much, do we?
No, it goes
It's
on and on
it
and on and
I
on.
mean,
drags them out. Yeah.
interestingly, I mean, Chris, Qinwen Zheng is in your camp because she was
Oh, is
quoted
she?
as saying, "I don't think it's too much for professional players. The calendar, the strongest players survive, and that's the rules in my head." Do you think that's a valid argument in terms of this is tennis, this is survival of the fittest, and if you can't live up to what the calendar demands, then that's on you. And players who can live up to those demands going to reap the rewards, or in this case, not pay the penalties.
I think you do want it to be a balance of like people who are physically fit, but also supremely talented, rather than just those who kind of plug
Mm.
away every week. I think it's quite funny that Chinwen made that comment because she's obviously been out for like 3 months
Yeah.
injured. So I guess that's a bit different if it is a genuine sort of injury. It's probably not necessarily targeted at those who do have problems that they might need to get surgery on or bigger problems.
Or might be going deep in the majority of tournaments that they play.
I think that's probably a really good point. If you're Alcaraz, you're playing that many more matches, and if it's mandatory for you to play them, it's not like it's mandatory for someone to go out who goes out in the first round. So I think that is a case that I would like there to be like almost like a swing where you're able to say, I'm going to skip one for this year, but you can't skip the same one 2 years in a row. Something like that would be quite a good rule, I think, on the ATP because they're going to skip them. They are skipping them and they're fine skipping them and they're still the top players in the world. So if you do want to make sure that they're more likely to be in attendance and you do want to keep them happy, then you have to make some allowances. So maybe I'm coming back around a little bit, Joel. I've
It's a
softened.
nuanced topic, isn't it? And actually, I want to skip ahead. Thanks, Tom, for your email, because I do think it's a difficult subject, and I hope we've managed to do some credit in answering it.